Thank you so much for being here. My name is Elisa Ewan, and I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at Teachers College. We are so grateful that all of y'all are here today to join us for this virtual event co-sponsored by Alumni Relations and TC's Come Together Right Now virtually series. We're thankful to all the alumni that have shared their time and expertise to help us create meaningful and engaging programs for the TC community this year. And now I would like to introduce today's event presenter, Alumna Danielle Rothman, who will be teaching us hand lettering. Danielle is an artist and illustrator who builds community through art and workshops. Danielle has a passion for teaching and has helped over 2,200 students at her workshop and private events in the New York City and virtually. Her business, Rothburns Creative, specializes in personalization and creative consulting, combining thoughtful handwritten designs with expertise in branding, website strategy, and team building. Past collaborations include events with the Guggenheim Museum, Facebook, Sophie, L'Oreal, Health Magazine, West Elm, and Chelsea Market, as well as custom work for Google, Run the Runway, and Johnson & Johnson. Danielle will be taking questions throughout the workshop today, so feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A pane below. We will be utilizing the chat and polling functions during today's workshop, so be ready for that. In the chat, I've dropped the link to our Google Drive folder, which we will be accessing to see each other's projects. In the folder is a worksheet we'll be utilizing during the workshop. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please take some time to do it now. If you have any technical or audio issues, please feel free to chat me directly in the chat box. That should be on the bottom of your screen. And now I hope that you have all of your art supplies ready, and help me welcome Danielle Rothman.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction. Hello, everybody. It is so nice to see you virtually. I'm really excited to be teaching this class. As it was mentioned, I am a modern calligrapher, hand letterer, illustrator, just all around crafty person. I have an MA from Teachers College in higher education, and really throughout my career, found that I was finding ways to infuse creativity into everything I did. So a few years ago, my friend bought me a coloring book, and it really opened my eyes to all the ways that you can be creative as an adult, and brought me to where I am today. So throughout the workshop, feel free to ask questions, not only about the technical aspects of the lettering that we're going to be doing, but about supplies, my creative journey, my entrepreneurial journey. I would be happy to talk about all of that. So quick housekeeping note before we dive right in. We're going to be putting out a poll. If you can just let me know what supplies that you're using today. One of the benefits of virtual workshops and working from home is that you get to use your own supplies. So it'd be really helpful to know what you're all working with so that I can make sure to give some tips and tricks to help make your coloring and drawing experience the very best it can be. So we have that poll up there now. Oh, I'm not allowed to vote. Well, I have all of them up there, so that's probably why. Great. And then, yeah, if anyone wants to type in questions, feel free also to say hi in the chat. Would love to see who's joining us and where you're joining us from. So to get started, let's talk a little bit about this topic of hand lettering. So when we talk about hand lettering, we're really talking about the art of drawing letters. So hand lettering is really exciting because we can take kind of anything, these 26 letters, and turn them into absolutely anything we want them to. So when we think about hand lettering, we want to think about what we're trying to say and how we want to say it. So it's a lot of emphasis on layout and color and tone and shape, and really filling the space and making it the very best it can be. So I'm going to just start by referencing the worksheet that was sent out. And the other thing you'll notice in that Google Drive is a PDF. It's some inspiration we're going to go through a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. So here we are with the worksheet. Again, you have this in front of you. It has all of my information on it. If you have any questions about working together in the future, would love to do that as well. So here we go. So one thing to note is the difference between calligraphy and hand lettering. So calligraphy is the art of writing beautifully, whereas again, hand lettering is the art of drawing our letters. So the emphasis is more on conveying our ideas through our writing, through what we're communicating on the page. So today's class is really going to be about learning about these hand lettering things and exploring your creativity and adding an explosion of color to really help you communicate those ideas. If you have any questions about the supplies that I'm using in class, I do have an Amazon wish list available, organized by category. You can see all of the supplies that I'm using today, and I'll happily answer any questions about those too. I am totally a markers addict. All right, so in today's class, we will be exploring the hand lettering process. So the very first part of this process is ideation. So thinking about what do you want to say and how do you want to say it. So a little bit of a preview in our class today. We're going to be learning a few different techniques, and we're going to be making a quote together. And that quote is going to be, "Knowledge is power," which is such a wonderful quote for our Teachers College community. So knowledge is power. So you can start thinking about what's the look and feel and how would you want to convey this idea of knowledge is power. So the next part after ideation is sketch. So we're going to practice doing something called thumbnails, where we make a few different versions of our design, trying out different styles, different sizes, different ways to do our guidelines to really come up with the best and strongest design. And we'll go through that process together. Then you're going to start the creation. So every good design starts with good guidelines. So we're going to talk about those today, practice making them, do our pencil sketch, and then we'll ink over it, and of course, add color. So we'll add our embellishments, add color, or not, that also works too, and make our design just really the best it can be. So this is a very iterative process. We're going to try some things, and we're just going to play and see how to create these different styles. So before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about the different styles that we have in our arsenal with hand lettering. So I think we're all familiar with this serif and sans serif thing from our typing, of course. So sans serif is the closest to our regular writing, whereas serif has those little feet on the top and bottom of our letters. So we can see that difference. And serif tends to be a little bit more formal, like Times New Roman, for example, as a typeface, a little bit more formal looking. Then we have script or cursive. And then we have this thing called monoline and this thing called a flourish. So when we think of script, we think of writing really fast, being really connected. We're not really picking up our pen very much. When we're kind of scrawling, right? That's kind of what we think about with script. But as you know, teachers, we know that good handwriting makes a good impression, right? So when we're looking at our script styles for hand lettering or calligraphy, we're going to have a little bit of a twist on it. So while at first glance it may look like script, really we're taking our time, we're slowing down. I mean, that's actually the #1 way to improve your handwriting, is to just slow down your writing and really pay attention to each stroke. So we're actually going to be picking up our pen pretty frequently as we're writing our script and faux calligraphy styles, or as I like to call it, fake it till we make it, that we'll be doing today. So monoline is the name for a calligraphy style that does not have the hallmark thicks and thins. So if we look at this word flourish, this is an example of modern calligraphy, which is based on a script style of calligraphy that I specialize in. And you'll see we have these thicks and thins. So we're going to do a technique called faux calligraphy, where we're going to create these thicks and thins ourselves. We call that a script style in hand lettering. And so we're going to be creating that. But if we don't have the thicks and thins, then it's called monoline. So you'll see it's a little bit more rounded. So it's writing in that calligraphy type style without adding those thicks and thins. Then this word flourish is what we call our embellishments. So all these little scripties, those are flourishes. And flourishes are great because they make our writing look extra fancy and they really jazz it up. So it's a really nice way to add a little bit of pizzazz to your writing. And to make it extra special. So we'll talk about some of my favorite super easy flourishes that we can put either with a script or a print to really kick our writing up a notch. And then I have a couple of examples here. So this one on the left is called bevel lettering. We actually borrow that from sign painting. And it's a way of creating 3D effects by using shading and color and shapes to create these panes. So I also think of it as jeweled lettering. That's what it looks like to me. So that's one example of a way we can take our 26 letters of the alphabet and really jazz them up. Then next to it, this amazing has a few things going on. So it is an uppercase sans serif, right? Like we were talking about before. It is also block letters, which is a really easy way to make our letters stand out a little bit more. And then we have this 3D shadow. So it just makes it stand out even more. So they're looking 3D and we see this shadow effect. The other thing that makes this one special is our guidelines. So whereas our love is straight across in both places, on Amazing, we actually have an arch. So we're straight across on the bottom and we're curved on the top. So this is another way that we can make dynamic layouts by having layouts that aren't just straight across, but they can be within a shape or part of a shape or on a diagonal. All sorts of fun things that we can incorporate to make our lettering stand out. So this Amazing is actually going to be our first activity, only because we're Teachers College. We will be writing lead instead. So before we go ahead and put pen to paper, just going to do a quick note about guidelines. So when we write, you'll probably recognize this from kindergarten. When we write, we have 3 lines, whether we know it or not. Our baseline, whether real or imaginary, is the line that all of our letters sit on. The X height is the height of our lowercase letters. And then the cap height is the height of our capitals. So just by moving this line in the middle, just by changing these guidelines up, we can have completely different dynamic styles of handwriting. So I'm going to show you what that looks like if we move that line around a little, and then we're going to create our own guidelines and write lead in this bubble letter 3D style. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to pass those into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and introduce my favorite tool in my arsenal, which is a camera that has been hiding this whole time right here. So this is my hand camera. So you'll be able to see everything that I'm drawing. If for whatever reason you're not able to see, just let us know in the chat and I'll go ahead and move that down. Awesome. All right, we got 89% have a black pen or Sharpie. We got 49% with markers. Markers are my favorite, so rock on. We also have 16% with alcohol markers. Awesome. 51% with colored pencils. Great. Have my colored pencils right here too. Gel pens, 19%. Love a good gel pen. Jelly rolls are amazing. They take me right back to middle school, and that's fantastic. And we have some folks with watercolors and oil pastels. Amazing. All right, we got a good range of supplies. So we'll definitely be using that black pen and Sharpie in class. We'll also be using our markers and our colored pencils. And since that's what most folks have, we're going to stick to that for today. But if you're ever curious about other coloring techniques, I do offer other virtual classes, and you can always shoot me a note. I'm always happy to help. All right, so let's start with these guidelines. So we had mentioned having a ruler handy. So if you want to grab your ruler and follow along with me, we're going to create these guidelines now. So I like using these little half rulers because they fit right in my little case that I bring around with me, my little pencil case. So I'm going to draw 3 lines. So just like the example that we had on the worksheet, these are pretty much equidistant, right? But now I'm going to draw them again. I'm going to cut it in half. Okay, so here they are pretty equidistant, right, to what we were looking at. And that's where we have our normal style. But say we want to jazz our letters up a bit. So instead of it being like it was on our worksheet, we can change it up like this. Now I haven't done much, but just by moving my X height up a little bit and making my letters more narrow, I have a totally different style. And say I want to prepare for Halloween and do some boogie lettering. All of a sudden, I have a completely new lettering style to play with. Now, what if I turn this upside down? All right. So if I turn it upside down, got my A. So this part of the A is called the crossbar. And it's a lot lower now. and it's a lot wider. And that again has a whole different look just by changing that one thing, just by moving that one line. So this is the kind of thing we can think about when we're personalizing our writing and having these different looks and really changing up how we're going to be drawing. So I just wanted to introduce that concept as we create our lead. So now we're going to make our guidelines again. All right. Now you can use a ruler as your writing lead, or you can freehand it to give it that hand-drawn look. It's totally up to you. I tend to leave the ruler out of it because I like that look where it looks very much like a person is making it. It just makes it feel very personal. So I'm going to start by creating my skeleton. So feel free to follow along with me. So I'm going to start by creating it now because I know that I want to do both my bubble letters and my 3D. I'm going to make sure that I'm leaving a good amount of distance between each letter on my skeleton. So that gives me a good amount of space. It's not quite equal, and that's why we're using a pencil, right? So we can always move things over if we want. I'm going to make this a little wider. Cool. Okay, so then a quick and easy way to make our block letters is to draw this same skeleton again, but to just have the whole thing moved over a little bit to the right. You can also use tracing paper for this, but I say just redraw it. So basically, we're going to take the same thing, and we're going to have it in a little higher too for like the L. We're just going to move the whole thing over to the right. So here we go. And here we go. And here's my A. Oops, that was a little far away. And then we'll put this one under it. I find under is better for A's because you don't want to lose your window here. And then the D. So just a quick and dirty guideline of how you want your letters to be. And now we can go ahead and connect it and add some connector space. So I'm going to start by connecting that area and decide how long I want this to be. And I can fix this up a little bit if I want. That's the nice thing about this pencil stage. It's all subject to change. You can always erase a pencil as we connect. Then I have my A. I think my A got a little bit thick here, so I can move that over. Now for the top of my A, I can decide if I want it to be pointed or flat. Flat is really good for modern styles. Pointed is really good if you're going for a vintage look. There is no right or wrong with it. Many of them use flat, so if you find that easier, go for it. If you wanted to do pointed, you just would want to scale this down a little bit more. And go ahead and connect through. And then our D. And so for this one, I'm just going to even out this area here. And this also feels a little bit wide to me, so I can go ahead and make that a little thinner and this a little thinner. All right, so this can get as sketchy as you want. Don't worry about it. The next step is going to be using our black pen or marker to go over it. So you can use a micron, this is a Sharpie pen, you can use a Copic, anything you have that's black. The only thing I would recommend not using is a gel pen. I love writing with gel pens, but they do smear a bit when it comes to outlines. You also don't need to use black. If you want to use another color, that's totally fine too. I just like using the black because it creates a really good boundary and guideline later when I'm coloring in. So when you're doing this, you only want to go over the lines you want to keep. So you see I messed up a little bit here. No worries. I'm just not going to go over those lines. I'm going to use this opportunity to neaten everything up and make it look real good. There we go. And perfect. How are we doing so far, folks? Doing good? All right. And here's the A. Don't forget, we want to go over that crossbar as well. And then the D. So this one, like I said, I made a little bit thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and erase a little bit here, just so you can see where everything is. And depending on the pen you use, just make sure that you're letting it dry first so that you're not smearing, but I know that this one dries pretty fast. You can always do a little supply test before you work to see how that works. So this eraser I'm using is called a stick eraser. I love this thing. It really helps you get like in those spaces and very particular about how you want to erase. So instead of just wiping it away, I have this cute little vacuum, and it's just going to scoop up my eraser shavings. Pretty sure it is my favorite tool in my arsenal these days. Best 10 bucks I ever spent on Amazon. All right, so now I have my block letters. Cool. Before I add my colors, I want to add my 3D. So the process of adding 3D and adding a shadow is actually the same. So the first thing we're going to do is think about a light source. So whenever we have this, we want to think about what is our perspective? Where is the light coming from? If the light is right above us, it's going to shine down and my shadows are going to be down. If it's to the right, it's going to shine down here and my shadows will be to the left. And if it's in the left, it's going to shine this way. So my default is to put my light source on this top left. And I literally draw in a sun so that I remember where it's coming from. And whether it's here or here, that's going to have an impact too on how long my shadows are and how much on an angle they are. So really think about where you want to put that sun. So the next part is to think about our shadow. So if it's casting a shadow, it's going to be drawing down. Now you can take your ruler and be very scientific and have every angle the same amount, or you can wing it. I'm gonna wing it. If you would like, especially at the bottom, you can take your ruler and you can add just another guideline here, depending on how long you want your shadow or 3D to be, just to know how far down to go. But basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to every corner and every edge, and we're going to pull down just to show that side. Now, notice I'm not pulling down here because it's blocked. We're thinking in three-dimensional space, so it's blocked by our L, so we don't need to do it there. So I'm going to do the same thing with my E, and pull down, and in the middle here. Very good. All right, and then again. And then also on the side part here. And for the D, we're also going to do this middle part. The reason we're not doing this middle part here is because it's so small that the whole thing is going to be covered. Now, when we have a curve, even though you don't really notice it on a curve, there is a little bit of a corner. So we're going to draw that down from over here. So after we draw down our edges, we're going to connect them, and that's what's going to give it our look. So here we go. And it's connected. Same thing over here. Now, the main difference between a shadow and 3D is what we choose to emphasize. So if we were just doing a shadow, we would only really be highlighting the outline part of it, right? And we usually make it less opaque, wouldn't really see it. And because we're doing 3D for this guy, and see, we're just following the shapes. Because we're doing 3D, we're actually going to outline all of these areas. And that outline is going to show the three-dimensionalness of it being in space. So quick note, if you do end up having your letters overlap, sometimes that happens, don't even worry about it a little bit. Just make sure that you're choosing one to be in front of the other. So when we get here to our curve, we're just going to follow the shape around. So even though we drew a line, we're going to have it curved over here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and outline this again. Feel free to do the same. And depending on your process, you can totally do the whole thing in pencil first, be happy with it, then ink at that stage. This is just easier for me to teach with because I know that the camera picks up the black pen a little bit better for you guys. And for this one, we're going to color in with our colored pencils. I know half of us have colored pencils, and talk about two different ways that we can color in. And those two different ways also apply to our markers as So as we're working here, if you want to share photos of your progress, please feel free, snap a picture, pop it in the Google Drive. Would love to cheer you on, not just at the end of class, but throughout it as well. It's always nice to see what students are creating. So feel free to take a picture, upload it. Would love to see what you're making. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase this now. And we can also go ahead and erase these guidelines too, but I will leave the sun just so we remember our directionality. And another thing, I will be scanning everything that we make today so that you have a copy of it. Changed my mind. I usually do the whole thing in colored pencils, but since so many of us have markers, I'm going to do this inside part in colored pencil, and I'm going to do the shadow in marker. That way we have both represented on the same thing. Never done it like that, but why not start today? Okay. So now we have our outline. It's looking really good. So let's think about colors. So tell me know in the chat, what colors do you think I should use for this? What color should I write for the letters and what color for the shadow? Go ahead and throw in some suggestions for me. Light blue. Yeah, I'm wearing my Teachers College light blue today. Okay, cool. So let's do some light blue and we'll add in some darker blue as an accent. Nice. And I'm seeing a lot of greens. Ooh, fuchsia, that's my favorite color. So I'm seeing a lot of green. So let's do some, oh, you know, I can do that for the shadow. We can add in some green and some yellow on the shadow. All right, cool. Thank you for your suggestions. Don't worry, I'm writing more, but we'll try other things as well. All right, so I have my colors here. So you'll notice that even though I'm coloring my lead in one color, I have 3 tones here. So when we're coloring with colored pencils, the trick is actually layering. So I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I would always press as hard as possible on my colored pencils and be like, why are there still so many white spaces? But that's actually one of the strengths of colored pencils. You do have those spaces, which makes layering look really beautiful. So you can take a few different tones and layer them to create something completely new. Also, layering covers that up. So it's a great way to create designs that really pack a big wallop in terms of color and really pack it in and make it look nice and bright and vibrant. So the first technique that we're going to do is to create an ombre letter. So ombre is when you have a color tone going from light to dark or dark to light, and it just follows through and it just creates some really beautiful dimension. The second way that we're going to be coloring is through using the natural highlights and lowlights that come from having our shadow or having our sun. So that's what we'll do for our shadow bits. So when we're creating this, I'm taking 3 colors of colored pencil. You can also do this with 2 colors of markers. And we're going to start by doing a base coat in our lightest color. And we're going to go a little bit farther than halfway down because we want to make sure that we have a good area of overlapping to show the transition between tones. And again, that's going to add dimension. One thing to note when you're using colored pencils, whatever color you lay down first is going to be the most prominent color. So if we want it to be super dark, we would want to start with the super dark one. And if we want it to be light, we want to start it with the light one. So in general, we start with lighter tones and build up because it's always easier to go darker than it is to go lighter. So here we go. I'm going to start with my first tone. I'm going to go pretty far down here. And that's layer 1. And then I'm going to come back, I'm going to do layer 2. And I'm going to do a little bit over here, just so that it doesn't feel like the whole side of the L is dark. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my darker color at the bottom. And I'm going to go pretty patchy because I want it to be more of a medium blue. So now that I've done my first layer, I'm going to go ahead and do a second layer of the light. Again, overlapping my other color a bit. And you don't have to press too hard for this. You can always add more layers. Just know it's a law of diminishing returns. Every time you add more layers, it's going to influence your color a little bit less that's under it. So there we go. Now I have this medium, and so I'm going to take this medium blue, and I'm going to go over the whole rest of it. Because I started with that base layer that's a little bit darker, you can see it already has a nice darker tone to it before I add this. And then I'm just going to go back and add a little bit more of a low light. So I have this nice ombre effect. Oh yes, I am. I'm using Prismacolor pencils. Great point. So Prismacolor pencils are wonderful. I have the whole set. I actually put them in this case that I really love. It just has everything laid out so you can see. And I do have this on the supply list on Amazon as well. So that way you can really pick your colors. One of the differences between a soft colored pencil like Prismacolor and a hard colored pencil like Crayola is that because these are softer, these are really made for blending and layering. So you're just gonna blend a little bit easier, but that's okay. You can still blend with any colored pencils. So again, with ombre, you can go up to down or down to up. And you don't have to do one letter at a time. So I'm gonna go ahead and color in all of these. The first part with my first color. Cool. And then my second color, coming down. And thank you for the question about the Prismas. That was very helpful. One thing to note when you're using colored pencils, you can totally use a manual pencil sharpener, but you can also use an electric one. The trick to that is every few colored pencils, just stick a regular pencil in there. It's going to clean the gears and help you have a better sharpening experience without breaking your leads. So just to note, you can just look up, colored pencil sharpeners, electric, and there's a bunch of cheap and battery powered options. Mine's like this. I'm able to just, carry it around with me. But every once in a while, you just want to pop a regular pencil in there. It's going to keep the blades nice and sharp and make it less likely to break your pencil leads. So here we go. See, that second layer really makes such a difference in filling it in, and we'll see how it compares to our markers. So you can definitely do this ombre technique for both, but I like for the shadows to have a little bit of directionality in there. So we'll talk about how to add that. So I got a question about watercolor pencils. So for those of you who have never used a watercolor pencil, they are colored pencils that are water soluble. So instead of just blending with other pencils or a blender pencil, you can actually take water. I have my water cup by me for that reason. Actually take a cup of water and a paintbrush, and you can use that to blend. So there's pros and cons. One obvious pro is if you're traveling and you don't want to worry about taking watercolors with you, you can just take your pencils with you, and then you have some flexibility. I use a brand that's the Derwent Ink Tense pencils. They're very vibrant. So that's another nice thing, is you can have that vibrancy you can fill in. One of the drawbacks of watercolor pencils is they are still pencils. So compared to regular watercolors, you'll often still see like your pencil marks. The other difference is that whereas colored pencil has this really nice texture to it, the watercolor pencil will smooth that texture over. So if you want to have like a very textured colored pencil experience, you're better off using regular ones. Or if you want smooth, then you're better off using the watercolor pencils. So my advice is, if you're curious about them, go ahead and get a cheap test set, just to see what it's like and see if it's something you enjoy. Don't forget, if you're using watercolor, you need thicker paper. So for colored pencils, you would want to use like a drawing paper, like a 60-pound or 65-pound. But for a watercolor pencil, you'd want to use at least a mixed media 90-pound paper, or even a 140-pound watercolor paper, depending on how much water you use. So for those of you who don't know as much about papers, this is just talking about the thickness. So it's thick, it's meant for water, otherwise your paper could buckle or disintegrate. The type of watercolor pencil I mentioned is the Derwent Ink Tense watercolor pencils. And so it's actually more ink-like, so they're super, super vibrant. And there's other brands as well. You can go ahead and I would say just if you can stop at the art store or just pick up a small set just to test it out, you can really blend and layer your colors. And then once you add the water, it all kind of zoom comes together. All right, great. So this is what we have with our ombre. And now we have our first part of our lead colored in. So for the second part, I'm gonna go ahead and use a marker. So I saw some green recommended in our chat. So I'm gonna use some greens for this. Yeah, that looks good to me. So I'm gonna start by thinking about the darkest areas because these are water-based markers versus alcohol-based markers. So the main difference is because they're water soluble, they are wet. So you're gonna wanna use, again, a little bit of a thicker paper. The only problem with blending, and they totally can blend, the only problem with blending is that if it gets too saturated and too wet, it can again tear through our paper. So if you find that you're a real markers person and this is your favorite way to color, I'd recommend getting a Bristol paper, which is nice and thick, or a mixed media paper. I'm just really thinking about thickness. So for this one, we're gonna start with our darkest color because while it's still wet, we're gonna pull it with our lighter color to create that ombre. So I'm gonna start by thinking about what are the darkest parts of my letter here. So anywhere where there's a corner or an edge, those are going to be the darkest parts. And there we go. So now I'm going to take my lightest color. I'm going to pull up from there and overlap it. And that's going to help me create these middle tones. And then I'm going to go back with my middle marker and fill in. So especially with water-based markers like this, we just want to make sure that there we go, that we're blending it together without causing our paper to pill, which is starting to happen here. So it just gets a little wet. It's all right. So the markers I'm using here are Marby Yoshida La Plume 2. So these are really nice artist markers, but I know that a lot of you have Crayolas. I have those too. So I'll be using those for our next activity. And I'll also type up some of those paper recommendations. Again, all of it is on Amazon, don't you worry. And yes, the recording will definitely be distributed. You'll have all of it. All right, so again, we're gonna look at the darkest areas here. All right. And then at the bottom. Okay. And now we have our lighter color. And filling it in the middle. And marker always looks darker when you lay it down. That's normal. And then I'm gonna drag this out. So alcohol-based markers are great because when they blend, they don't cause pilling, but they definitely will bleed through your paper. So if you have alcohol-based markers or you wanna give them a try, they're great. You can use them on pretty much any type of paper as long as you have some good paper under it. Because that's really going to help make sure that you're not, you know, ruining whatever is under your art project. Oop, got a little bit on there. Cool. All right. So I'm just going to do these areas together. Keep those questions coming.
So Danielle, I'm very curious to know what your favorite medium is to use. Do you like using alcohol-based markers? Do you like using your Prismacolor pencils, or what's your favorite? Jelly rolls? I know you're a big fan of jelly rolls as well.
So it's a really hard question to answer because I go through phases. And so like in the beginning of the summer, I was in this like really intense like watercolor phase, and everything had to be watercolored. And then I was in this jelly roll, like gel pen phase. I got like 100 glitter gel pens, and I was like, yes, all the coloring with them. So there was that. And then I recently discovered alcohol-based markers, and I'm having a little bit of a love affair. So I think the answer is I love all supplies, and I go through phases, but at the end of the day, the one that I keep coming back to time and time again is definitely markers, whether it's brush markers, regular markers, Crayola, fancy. If I could only have one supply with me on a desert island, it would probably be my markers.
Totally understand. I just bought some markers for this and I'm a big fan and I'm definitely going to be playing with a lot of them now. So we just got a question, Danielle, about how did you learn hand lettering? Did you learn from a book? Do you have something that you would recommend to people who are um, beginners like myself on the call?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I did teach myself with books and blogs. That was really influential when I was first starting. And I do have some recommendations. Really just looking at alphabets. Pinterest is a great place to go for inspiration to start and just really dive in. I think a lot of times we're the ones who stop ourselves. And that's actually been my motto for the last 4 years is stop stopping yourself. You know, my whole life I thought I couldn't draw. And it turns out I just never tried. And then I became a full-time artist. So I'm all about giving yourself that chance and not worrying about it being perfect. So the other mantra I use is progress over perfection. So I would say starting with that and not being afraid to just dive in. I also get a lot of inspiration from the world around me, like the city. Anytime I see cool awnings, I literally stole my calligraphy G off an awning on 57th Street. I was like, I like that. I'm going to use it. And you can totally get that kind of inspiration and make it your own, you know. I think people get really hung up on like copying and you know, respecting an artist and their artwork, but also like want to try something themselves. And I think there can be a lot of creativity from finding 2 or 3 inspiration things and just being very specific about what you like. So maybe you like the color palette or you like the shape or you like one letter, and then you can riff off of that and create your own thing. So I think there's a lot of inspiration there. But back to the question, yeah, I love a good book. You know, that's a really inspiring thing for me. And I can pull a couple of my favorites in a minute here. So I'm gonna go ahead and teach you guys the next technique. So going back to our worksheet here, perfect. Our next technique is called Faux Calligraphy or script style. And it's basically the fake it till you make it technique. So for regular calligraphy, whether it's traditional or modern, you use a special tool to help you create the thicks and thins. And there's different techniques. You can do broad edge style where you have a really thick pen and you turn it different ways to create the thicks and thins, or you can do a pointed pen style where you're using a marker or a pen and you're using pressure, which is what modern calligraphy is based on. But at the end of the day, it's creating that style. So faux calligraphy is where we fake that by drawing in our thicks. So the main rule for this faux calligraphy or script style is anywhere that you go down, it's called a downstroke, is thick. Anywhere that you go up or an upstroke is thin. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So this example is NYC. So you see we're writing it out. And then after we write it in our script style, and you can do the whole word, because when we add our downstrokes in, we're going to be looking for adding balance. So that's going to be great. And then we want to draw these in a way to make our lettering really stand out. And then when we're done outlining, we can fill it in. And you can fill it in with either the same color or a different color. You could put it in a pattern. It's really kind of up to you. So let's go ahead and practice that for a minute here. Go ahead and share my screen again. So I'm going to start by redrawing my guidelines. So when we're writing in this script style, there's going to be a few parts. So let's take this NYC that we had on the list here. So this is the entrance stroke that guides us in. And that's going to be important, especially on our uppercase letters. Then we have the letter itself, but it doesn't end at the bottom. It actually comes right back up. This is called an exit stroke. That's the third part of our letter. And that is going to be what guides us into our next letter. That comes up either all the way or almost all the way to our X height. And so that's going to help serve as a catcher's mitt. So that way, when we have our next letter, there's something for it to connect to. So it comes back up, and then it comes back up again. So that's how we can put that together. So once we have that, then we can do step 2. So here we go. Great. And then step 2 is going to be to add in our downstroke. So now I've written this 3 times. You can see I was up and across. So this is thin. Then I came down. So I'm going to round the top, come down and round the bottom to make it look natural. Now it doesn't matter if you go on the inside or the outside here. You just want to be creating balance. So I'm going to go on the outside a little bit. And I'm going to taper the bottom into the curve. This one I'm going to go inside. And there's a good amount of space here. So I'm going to go outside on these 2 just to fill that in. And I'm going to taper again on my curve so that it feels natural. So when I ink this, I can either leave it open or I can color it in. So I'm going to leave this one open so that I can color in the inside of this. Any way that I want. So then when I erase, again, I'm only outlining the lines I want to keep. I have these nice open spaces. And say I don't feel like coloring in the whole thing, that's fine. I can go ahead and take my marker. This guy, my Crayolas. I can go ahead and I can draw a pattern in it instead of a full coloring in. Or really do whatever I want. Maybe this one will be vertical. And if you're interested in learning more about this technique, the last page of my worksheet does have a full script alphabet that you are more than welcome to play with. And I also have a few inspiration quotes on here as well. So let me go ahead and share those. So as we're looking at these inspiration quotes and we're thinking about layout, the number one thing that you want to think about is what you want to have stand out. So for this shine bright, I really wanted the bright to stand out. So that got top billing is the biggest thing. And then the shine isn't too small, right? We still want it to be there and really be prominent. This believe in yourself, the in's kind of like a filler word, it's that smallest. And then the yourself is really big. But that's just how I interpret it. Maybe for you, believe is really big and that gets the fanciest style. So it's really up to you how you want to use it and how you want to think about color and style and tone. So when we're doing a layout, the first thing you want to think about is what's the most important word or words and how can I highlight that, whether through shape or color. So looking at some color inspiration on your worksheet, we have modern and fun, and you can see how each one has a different vibe based on the colors and shapes that are in here. So as I mentioned, the quote that we're gonna lay out is going to be knowledge is power. So since TC is a wonderful institution with tons of traditions, actually decided to share some inspiration from the 1800s. So my tradition with my husband is we get birthday books. And this past year for my birthday, he found me this book from 1877. And I found a scan of it online. So I love teaching with it because it has these really cool old alphabets. And some of them look quite modern, actually, 150 years old, just like TC, and really has so much wonderful inspiration to riff off of. So if you're looking for something to be inspired by, we shared this as well. This is a really nice way to get inspired. So yes, So we have our inspo here. So for our knowledge is power, let's take a little bit of inspiration from here and a little bit of inspiration from what we've already done and start laying out our quote. So let's see, I'm scrolling for one that I really like. Oh, here we go. So we have our Egyptian one with our shading. So you can see it's a variation on the shading that we did before. And then I really like these ornamental ones. They just look so modern to me. So I'm gonna leave this one up as we start our knowledge is power. So the first thing we're gonna do is create what's called a thumbnail. So I'm just gonna make 3 little boxes on my paper. And I'm going to play with, on these boxes, how this can look. All right, so keep these kind of inspirations in mind. We can really do anything, right? So now when we do this, we can think about knowledge is power. So I always like to write what it is and then underline the most important word. So for me, I think power is really powerful. Knowledge is second important, and that is a little bit of a filler. So we can do all sorts of things. What if we did a guideline that went straight across? And we could do power like this, right in the middle, and then knowledge around it. That's one option. We could also have power really strong at the bottom, and then some sort of shape, and then we can have another style. So I like to mix script and not script, but you don't have to. And then another option is to do a circle. So I was joking before, so I have a circle maker, but when I make circles for guidelines, I usually just use a roll of tape. So anything you want. So you can try writing your letters in different shapes and see how that works. Oh, excuse me. So just kind of getting an ideation, like an idea of where we want to go with it. So since we only have a few minutes left, I'm just going to write this pretty quickly using our script and a sans serif style. So feel free to follow along with it. So I'm just going to keep this nice and simple. So I'm going to do power across like that. And actually I really liked how that circle looked. So I'm literally using a roll of tape. We have to get creative, right? And yeah, and that's how I'm gonna write it. So I'm just gonna do, so as you can see on my little guidelines, I totally had misspellings. That's completely common, and that's because we often lose the forest for the trees, since we are not only since we're not only writing slower and differently, but we're still focused on each letter. So if you have a misspelling, don't worry about it. It is not a big deal. You can always go ahead and fix that. And then a really easy flourish I like to do is you go like you're doing a figure 8 and then continue through and under. So there we go. We have a quick and easy guideline here. So you can see as I was writing this script style, every letter ends up on that exit stroke we were talking about. And notice I'm not exactly following my guidelines. That's okay. And I'm probably going to go back and add some embellishments to this power, making it a little bit bigger. So maybe I'll add a little bit of a shadow to it as an outline. And then under. And voila. So you can get super fancy or not. You can keep it simple. It's totally up to you. I think that power would look really good in that 3D way we wrote lead before. Okay, so we have about a minute left. Any final questions or comments as we round out our session here today?
That looks awesome, Danielle. Thank you so much for showing us this. I'm going to show you quickly what I did.
Oh,
My knowledge is power.
gorgeous.
I need to this is all very simple. I haven't outlined it yet, but definitely need to slow down a little bit more when I'm doing my script. And I think was a helpful tip for everyone, because I feel like when we're doing cursive, we're just writing as fast as we can. So thank you so much. I know we're at time, so I'm so sorry if we didn't get to do any of your questions, but we will be sending up a follow-up email that will have Danielle's website, and you can contact her there. And we'll be sending out our worksheet as well that she's given us, as well as the inspiration booklet. So you can find all that, and you can definitely keep working on your hand lettering afterwards. And you'll have the video recording as well, so no worries. Danielle, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to teach us this fun new skill. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with the TC community. TC is planning more digital events in the near future, so please stay tuned to emails from TC, Alumni Relations, and our social media channels. As I mentioned before, you will be receiving the link to this video recording, as well as all the handouts and a follow-up email. And the video will also be available on our website. We hope you can join us for our next event, Cacao to Bonbon, a chocolate making workshop with alumna Carolina Quijano on Wednesday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you all so much.